I currently have three, I think.
3 metas? Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah, three metas.
You're a little quiet. So how
Is
do
that a
you
little
get
better?
along with yeah. So how do you get along with your metas?
Actually, we get along pretty well. I mean, most of us talk on a chat most of the nights when we're bored. We message each other and plan out different dates we want to do, you know, our significant others and so on.
That sounds great. It sounds like you've got a really good kind of like working relationship as like partners in the broader relationship.
Yeah, I agree. There's one that I don't talk to that much. She's kind of a quiet one, but the other two I am perfectly fine with. I actually talk to on a weekly basis.
That's fantastic.
I have one meta, and we get along like we've been best friends for years.
That's great.
That's amazing. How did y'all develop your relationship?
Like for
Sorry, I'm
example,
trying to. I keep trying. I'm still new to this app, so I had to unmute myself. Um, it's important for me, and my meta. I don't know if I can say, but she's my husband's OSO. It's important for me to have a close relationship with my meta, whether it be my husband's partner or my partner's partner. I don't if that. I just confused myself.
can you define OSO for us?
Oh, other significant other. My
Okay, thank you.
husband's, yeah, my husband's girlfriend is my meta. Um, it's important for me to have a close relationship with my husband's girlfriend. Um, we don't have to, do everything together, but I at least want to have established a relationship with that person. Well, it just like a friendship.
Makes sense.
I agree. I really enjoy having close relationships with my metas. Um, when possible, it's not always possible because personalities conflict and all that. But it is really a truly beautiful thing whenever uh, metas can get together and hang out and not be a lot of silly drama.
Yeah, definitely. So for those of you who've had like a good relationship with your metamors, uh, what do you think is kind of helpful for that? Like if you've had conflicts or tensions, perhaps that might like how did you manage to overcome those things in order to keep the relationship going as smoothly as it did?
Specifically with you and the meta between you two.
Sure, or any other sort of issue involving the meta, yeah.
Well, I was in one predicament where my partner and my meta were in the middle of just a mild argument, and I that was my first time doing that. I didn't know what to do. So I just stayed out of it and let them work it out because
Hmm.
it was conflicting because it's my husband and it's my meta who is my best friend. My meta and I never had any conflict ourselves, so I wouldn't know about that.
Okay, thank you.
That's amazing. So there's a question that comes up on the text message side, and it says um, that it's the boyfriend or girlfriend of one or both partners in a long-term relationship. Does it always have to be in relation to a core relationship, or could it be like my partner kind of thing?
Well, personally, I don't think of. I think once it's more than 2 degrees removed, I don't think of that person as my meta anymore. I think my partners are just they're halfway to Kevin Bacon, so I don't really think much of them if I don't have any other more direct relationship with them. But another way to interpret that question of is it already always in relation to a core relationship is, you know, is what if I don't have a long-term relationship involved, but I have like kind of a casual or shorter term relationship with partner A, who has also a casual short-term relationship with partner B. Is partner B still my meta, or does it only apply when there's like a long-term relationship involved somewhere?
Well, Diamond Dash said something interesting. She said
Yeah.
it's like saying a second cousin twice removed. At that point, are they your cousin or family at all? So, does
Well,
any of
yeah, if I say if I can catch something from them, they're in some form of my polycule. So that's I have a vested interest in knowing who they are and what their practices are, in my opinion.
So I definitely believe in keeping up with your grand metas to a degree, but I think it kind of depends more on what is the relationship like, because like you said, it's halfway to Kevin Bacon, and depending on what your partners are like and their partners are like, should you take special precautions because of that person, or is it just your normal precautions from the background community?
What do you mean? I don't know. I don't understand what your question is.
So let's say I'm dating someone who's dating someone else, who's dating someone else, who's dating someone else. Now, could you get something from them? Yeah, but you could also maybe get it from them like 9 different other ways.
I mean, I guess, but I'd still want to know who that person is and what their, relationship to me is. If I have the capability of knowing, I like knowing. Like, I believe in transparency. So if that's an option, then that's the option I would like to choose.
I definitely believe in STD or STI transparency down through the polycule all the way. But do I need to have a relationship with my grand meta if we're going to coin that term? Uh, no, I don't think I need a relationship with them. Just, you know, general understanding that they are there and what diseases I might catch. But other than that, they don't affect my day to day life really at all, or hopefully don't.
It's kind
I
of interesting. Go ahead.
No, I found it not well comforting, sort of, to have a relationship with my grandmother. Just like just keep in contact because we were both in the same similar situations. Like he was dating the spouse and I was dating the other spouse, so he was my partner's partner's partner. So I felt
Mm.
like we had something in common.
That makes sense to me. One of the things that I find kind of interesting is that it's I can't even. There are times when I can't see how big my polycule is. Like I don't know where the boundaries are. It might extend, almost infinitely, just because, there aren't any limits. I know I may be dating somebody who has another partner, who has another partner, who has another partner, and I can't see to the end of it. So, I have no idea how many people are in the extended polycule. It could be thousands of people for all I know. And the other thing it occurs to me is like there are times when I don't even know who my metas are, let alone know who my grand metas are. So it's interesting. It's kind of a unique perspective to hear for me.
I think it's all in how interested you are in having, like Sadie says, how large your of a polycule you are comfortable with. Um, Very rarely do me and my partner, date people that have very extensive polycules. But I do know some people that have those. And so I, I've known people that whenever they go to start charting out their polycule, they need like poster paper that just kind of extends forever. And that's interesting to me because I very much like kitchen table poly. I like knowing all the people, all the moving parts, so to speak. Um, so that's interesting to me.
Yeah, I'd be really uncomfortable with having like a really extensive polycule because I want to know, I want to be involved with the people that I care about and who they care about. And if that extends, to like 200 people, then we have a problem. I mean, in my world, that's not really realistic. So I'm much more of a one-on-one kind of person. So to me, like knowing those people is, I don't know, it's important.
So, what do you consider a large polycule?
I would guess when you can't see the end of it, maybe when you don't know how big it is.
Yeah, when I start losing track of who's dating who and how many people there are, like, I don't think that, I mean, I think that it's real easy if someone's a very kind of to get a very large polycule. And so I'm more inclined to be involved with people who are, I guess, focused on more, not polyfidelitous, because that's not necessarily like the case, but more close, like long-term, serious quotation marks, like relationships that aren't just dating, that are like more focused on having depth and the person being around for more than 5 minutes, I suppose.
So here's the thing, to harken back to like high school health class, you date two people, that's not a large polycule. And they date two people, and now we're up to six, and they all date two people, and we're up to eight. And nobody has necessarily a large polycule, but you are inside of a community.
Right. Like you could have an infinite polycule of infinite size with each person only dating two people.
Yeah, of course.
And they could all be serious relationships even.
Yeah, of course. But at some point, I'm going to withdraw from that situation because I don't feel comfortable having that many people connected to me, I guess.
And I like to think of it as soon as I get tongue-tied, I think it's gotten really big. Like I can say my husband's girlfriend's husband's girlfriend's girlfriend's husband. If I get tongue-tied and twisted and try to think, like that's getting really big. But to me, I don't think my polycule can have a max to it, but that's just personally.
I also don't like it when I get, when someone comes up to me and they have information about me that I haven't given them, and it's, I don't know who they are, and they're like someone that's somehow related to me through people that they're dating and I'm dating, and that's really disconcerting to me. So yeah, like that would be a problem.
So in a similar vein, you don't want people to know things about you you didn't disclose, but at the same time, if they're two or three people removed, do they get to tell everyone their own STD status? Are they required to tell it three or four people at the chain?
I would think people are. I wouldn't put the obligation to communicate directly to anyone with whom you don't have a direct relationship. I think it's kind of up to each person to maintain the level of transparency and disclosure that they've agreed to with their direct partners.
I would agree with that, but I would also, that's why I think it's important to have direct communication with your metas.
Can you clarify?
I mean, I would agree that you should only disclose what you're comfortable disclosing with whom you're comfortable disclosing it. But I also think that if I'm in a direct communication line with my meta, there's a lot better chance that I'm going to be able to communicate whatever it is I need to communicate, whether it's STD status, whether it's, the calendar, whatever the situation is. Communication's key in any relationship. And I don't think that if you're not dating that person, it doesn't really matter that you're not, romantically involved with them. You still have some form of relationship, and to kind of ignore them or pretend like they don't exist is just a recipe for disaster in a lot of ways. I think so. I think having that direct line of communication with them is imperative.
What could go wrong if you're not like taking a direct like sort of relationship with your metamors?
Well, it's like the telephone game. I mean, I tell something to my partner relays it to, their partner relays it to the other partner. Like, I mean, where's the end of that? We know how that game goes and how well that works, right?
Well, I guess if the purpose is to communicate something down the chain, then yeah, the more nodes in that in that process, the more chances for distortion. But I guess, but yeah, and I suppose like if, as you said, if it's important to you to have that kind of communication all the way down the chain, then yeah, then you'd want to have that direct communication line. That makes sense.
I Well, I think it's ideal that everybody knows everybody. I also know that me being introvert, I am not going to get to know all these people, especially if it's a very extended polycule. Um, there was one meta that I had one time. I wasn't exactly sure what her name was for like 6, 7 months. Um, and I certainly had no communication with her. Um, and it wasn't until much later, outside of him, that I did meet her, and everything was cool and everything was chill. There were no issues between us, and but I very much relied on my partner telling me the things I needed to know about that relationship. And he was very forthright, and I wasn't worried, but still, it's one of those things that the game of telephone gets ugly.
Is
Hmm.
it common for metas to not meet? They'll know about each other, but is it common for them not to meet?
Seems that way to me, anyway.
It depends on your dynamic. Certain people don't really care to meet their meta because it doesn't really affect their life all that much. They like to know basic information like their name or their STD STI status. But other than that, typically some people, especially if they are relationship anarchist, generally don't know or don't care, or at least from what I've experienced, that's the case.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective is like if one of my if a meta would like, I'd like the chance to get to meet my metas because they could be potential friends, but and if they are interested in meeting me, then that's great because it's always nice to make new friends, and we obviously have something in common, our shared partner. But in terms of like disclosure, I kind of, what comes naturally to me is a feeling that who my partner's date is none of my business, which I understand is unusual, or at least is certainly not a universal sentiment.
Agar, to piggyback on that, I've heard it's kind of gender based on whether or not metas really kind of like to meet each other. It's not been my experience, but it's what I've heard is that often, like the girls like to meet up, the guys generally don't.
Hmm.
That's I can completely see that because my my meta we we've just always known each other, but I've started dating someone and I asked my husband, I said, I want you to meet him after a certain amount of time or whatever, and he just looked at me funny, and I said, aren't you supposed to meet him? And we like kind of didn't know what to do. But it's like I can see that guys, they don't really care, but girls have a more vast interest to know the person, to know their meta, I suppose.
I mean, I think that makes sense in a way, in that women are very kind of socially driven a lot of the time, and want to make family and want to make community and that sort of thing. And so, in my experience, that hasn't been the case either. Um, but I've had pretty negative experiences overall with metas. So I don't really. I don't know. I also kind of disagree that that metas don't impact your life, because a lot of mine have impacted my relationships to a large degree, and not in a positive way. So um, a lot of that had to do with not being in communication with them, I feel like. So yeah, I mean, my desire for communication and transparency comes from experiences that have ended up not so positively because we weren't having that communication.
That makes sense.
I can definitely understand that. Could it? So, just to dig a little deeper, why do you think they didn't want to get to know you, or they didn't like you, or whatever the case may be? Um, and is there anything that you think you could have done differently, or um, that sort of thing, Sadie?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to contemplate that, because um I don't know,
I'm sorry.
maybe
I'm
just be
sorry
a
to cut
different.
you off, Sadie, but I can't hear you.
Oh, okay, that's weird.
I can hear her.
I can turn up my mic maybe. So can you hear me now? um Basically, I don't know what I could have done other than be a different person altogether. A lot of it, I think, was fueled by rumors and, things that other people were saying, and that sort of thing, that never ends up good. But all in all, I mean, I did my best to make those relationships functional, and you can only do so much when you don't have the cooperation of the other person. So
I can understand that. I've had a few metas that weren't particularly fond of me. Um, I still didn't hear most of what you said, and I'm really sorry for that. Um, so I personally have had instances where I've had really good relationships with metas. And I've had some really disastrous relationships with metas. And what things I've kind of learned from those interactions was there's a certain amount of closeness that I want to have, and there's a certain amount of distance that I also want to have. I personally have a rule that I will not or don't try to date metas. Um, their relationship is their relationship, and I stay out of it as much as I can, unless it affects me. Um, and I because the generally the times that I've had problems with metas, I was also trying to date those people, or they had expressed interest in me, and I either felt like they were using their relationship with me to control my partner or to control me, and so that didn't work for me. So does anybody have any deal breakers whenever it comes to metas? Say if you do not get along with your meta, is that a deal breaker? Are you out, or can you maybe come up with something else to make it work?
I'd say it's a
Fine.
deal breaker. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'd say it's a deal breaker. Just I guess in my situation, because I want to get to know and get along with my partner's partner, because we're sharing a human. And we like to go out and do stuff. Like we'll
Sadie
go out
says
to
that
dinner.
it is definitely a deal breaker for her, and she will totally break up over that. So, do you approach the meta with that, or your partner, or
I would
Well, by
approach
that,
the
oh,
partner.
yeah, by that point in time, I've already tried everything in my power to make some sort of relationship work with the meta, and at that point, my partner is either recognizing that the situation is untenable, or you know, is in denial. And at that point, I usually say, well, look, I'm not going to continue this being in this situation for my own sanity. So, if you want to have a relationship with that person, go have that relationship. And, when you're done having that relationship, then, maybe we can talk again. But I'm not interested in complicating my life with people that I'm, unable to communicate with.
That makes sense. I guess, have there been any examples where there's ever, like, has anybody had any examples of where they had some sort of conflict with their meta, some sort of tension, and they worked it out? That rare, huh?
um, I've had some experiences where Meta and I didn't get along, but we basically agreed to disagree and just stayed out of each other's hair. Sometimes I
That
think that's
sounds
the
good.
best you can do.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds very reasonable. Yeah, I kind of start from that as the default for me. It's like I start off not even knowing my meta exist, and then if they become uh, like, I guess it only becomes a thing uh, if I guess there's a development that they want to get to know me, or somebody wants us to get together, then we can maybe be friends or something. And or sometimes I might know a meta before they become my meta, in which case we already have sort of a direct relationship going in terms of acquaintanceship or friendship that's independent of our meta more relationship, which kind of makes it a bit more complicated.
So, what if your partner didn't approach a potential partner with that whole "you need to get along with my partner, my other partners, or this is going to be over"? How do you deal with that?
I think it might be situational, but I would at least want to fake it till you make it. If you have to go out to like a birthday dinner or something, do it for your partner. If my partner is hell bent on being a partner with person A, and me and person A don't get along, if he's truly happy with that person, I don't get along with that person, it's just situational, I guess. I don't know.
No, I get that. And it really is situational. There are partners that I've felt were so toxic to my well-being that I literally said, I don't want to hear about this person. I don't want to hear about your drama with this person. I can't hang, I can't deal, and just I'm out. And there are other partners where I was willing to be respectful and listen and, you know, give them the space to talk, but at the same time, hold it in and say, this is not my circus. Those are not my monkeys. And, you know,
Yeah.
uh, not engage.
Yeah, and if it comes a time where it's maybe affects your relationship with your partner, then I think it becomes a problem, and then we'll have a talk about it.
Um, I think it's important. If there, like in the corporate world, or if you work, there are lots of people that you don't like or you don't uh, get along with for a variety of reasons. And I think the same holds true for metas. There are times that you are just not going to get along with this person for any number of reasons. And I think that much like the workplace, it is still very important to remain respectful and, you know, grin and bear it, so to speak, until the event's over. And, just be happy for your partner and maybe dig really deep and find some compersion in there somewhere. And, get, you know, do that.
Mhm.
Well, there's always the option of a corporate, hostile takeover.
Sadao, you're very, very soft. Can you adjust your mic gain or something?
I said you can always perform a hostile takeover.
Can you elaborate on a hostile takeover?
That was a bad joke. Sorry. You used the
Okay.
workplace.
Right, right. What was the question again?
What if your husband and your boyfriend's wife didn't get along? I think, is that considered a grand meta?
So
Yeah.
your boyfriend's wife is a meta, and your husband is a direct partner, but your husband to your boyfriend's wife is like a grand meta. So,
Yes.
so then, yeah, to me, that my first question is, so what? I mean, it seems so far
Yeah.
removed.
I would say so
Oh,
what until it affects you.
yeah, I agree.
I
The
guess.
only
Go ahead.
Well, the only people I would be concerned about getting along with per se is my direct meta. Anybody beyond that, I don't have to really talk to you that often.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of like when I'm trying to imagine a scenario where uh, issues with a meta or further out affect my relationship. And I guess I'm finding I don't really think of it in those terms. I sort of think of, like, regardless of what's going on in my partner's other relationships, I tend to think of my relationship with my partner is purely between me and them. And if they're going through other stuff that is affecting their availability or whatever, that's still sort of, I think of as between me and them, in terms of it's up to me and them to work out how much time we spend with each other, and, or what other resources we're sharing or anything like that. And so I kind of I deal with it directly as any issues I have with my partners are issues that I have directly with my partners. And I haven't really thought about it being an issue with a meta. I kind of leave that up to my partner to work out.
Well, how about AR? If your partner's partner was restricting the amount of time that you had, or um, didn't want to share resources, or has an STD or STI and wants to be fluid bonded with your fluid bonded partner, these things do
Hmm.
affect you.
I see.
Um,
Yeah, I think in those first cases, like if it's restricting the amount of time or resources that I have, I still kind of think of that as it's a matter of my partner's decision how much time and other resources to share with me. And And then as far as the STI thing, part of what helps me feel more detached and less worried about metas, etc., is I never fluid bond with anybody. so I always maintain, and that makes me feel safe enough to not worry about what other people do and just trust them to their own judgment.
It's probably safer that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see that. With my nesting partner, there have been situations that came about that very much did affect me. There was one meta that wanted to be fluid bonded, and she wasn't on birth control,
Mm.
and both of them are very fertile people. They both have numerous children between them, and so the idea of her fluid bonding with him, especially while not using birth control, very much would affect my life
Oh
because
yeah.
I, even if they didn't stay together, he would have to potentially pay child support or have
Mm-hmm.
visitation with that child, and
That
and so that very much does affect my life,
I
and
think
I
that's
feel
yeah.
like I have a say in that.
I think that's an excellent example because I hadn't that particular type of thing hadn't occurred to me, and that seems more serious. The way it make in terms of how it makes me feel to think about it, that would feel more serious to me than any STD. and
It's
so,
an it's a STD that lasts for 18 years,
yes, yeah,
minimum
so
for
yeah,
life
exactly.
mostly.
So that would
So
yeah that would definitely get me like that would get me antsy if something like that were on the horizon. So yeah, thank
yeah,
you for providing that example. I'll give that some more thought.
yeah, it's tricky because part of me wants to be open and say, yeah, it's y'all's relationship. You get to determine that, and I don't really get a say in what y'all do because you are two consenting adults. But at the same time, I'm like, that's money that's not available to the household. That's more hours that I have to work to make up for it, or
Hmm.
that kind of thing. And children are a blessing. I don't get me wrong. I mean, if you like that sort of thing, they are. But uh, I'm not shaming people that don't want children. That's your prerogative.
I
But
wish I could like make like comments and stuff on this while you're talking because I'd be like laughing at
Yeah.
that one.
I think it brings up a really great point in that to a degree or a question maybe, to what degree do we kind of by contract control our metas or control our partners? What agreements do we have stick? Because we talk a lot about agency and things like that, but here we're saying, well, if it's going to affect me like this, I should have more say.
Mm.
an agency is a big deal, and nobody wants to take agency away from. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. Very few people want to take agency away from other consenting adults. However, you do have to weigh the pros and cons and see how it's going to affect your partner's life.
Hmm.
If I, at 40 years old, want to have a kid, that's going to affect me and my partner's retirement plans and, a whole list of things. And your your meta might not be signing up for that. Like at this point,
Hmm.
I'm done with kids. I love all the children I have, but I have a lot of them, and I'm done.
And no more love left.
Right. Uh, well, it's not just that. You get to a certain point in your life that you want to go and achieve things for yourself, especially if you're a parent.
Yeah.
You spend a great deal of time devoted to your children, and then you get to a certain point and you're like, I want to do me now. And it becomes an even bigger thing whenever you're talking about STDs or STIs, where these things, there are some things that Ajax can't rub off. And you're going to deal with that for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So, or the consequences thereof.
I'm building a tiny house just so they don't have room to move back in.
There you go. A well-timed
Okay.
vasectomy is cheaper. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, a question that came up is, what kind of red flags do you look for, and how do you spot that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
So, what kind of red? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think since mostly I have I focus more on my direct relationships and very little on my metas. I my red flags will all come from if there's an issue with a meta, it would always come from me observing my partner, and like so if my partner is upset about a partner of theirs, or if they're they always come back from a date feeling awful or something like that, then again, I'm mainly focusing on my direct partner, and it would be kind of like I'd want to help them it would be pretty much the same sort of dynamic as if you have a close friend who's in dating somebody and it looks kind of bad. You'd want to check and see if they're feeling okay, and see what's wrong, and try and get them talking about what they're dealing with, and try and get a better understanding.
I definitely agree with that. Some red flags I look for, especially since I live with my partner, is partners that get very quickly attached and want the relationship to speed up quicker than it normally would. If they basically want to put the relationship escalator on high and basically seem like they're trying to catch up with me.
Ah.
I mean, my partner and I have been together for almost 4 years now, and we've been through some stuff. And I feel that if a partner comes in 2 weeks wanting to split time exactly straight down the middle, and these kind of things, or be fluid bonded, as I talked about earlier, that partner had been with my partner or that meta had been with my partner for like 2 weeks at that point. And I'm like, y'all don't even know each other. You need to slow your roll.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and that's even like red things that would be red flags in a direct relationship also make sense as red flags in a metamor. If I'm just dating somebody, and like at the end of the first date they bust out "I love you," and then that might get
run,
that.
run.
But what if I do love you?
Well, that's great. I'm going to say thank you, and maybe we should get to
And
know
right
each other.
away.
Let's get
Well,
married.
no, I would be on like alert, but I wouldn't end a relationship per se necessarily over that. But yeah, it would definitely put me on edge. Like, ooh, we may need to have a talk about expectations. And just to make sure we're all clear here, because some people can say that phrase is very powerful, and it means different things to different people. So it especially if you don't know someone very well, you may not quite understand what they mean by that phrase. So it helps to have more communication, of course, and that's that.
I
But
think on
yeah,
the
if someone
first date,
go
the
ahead.
L word should not be thrown around at all, even in a joking matter.
Ah, that makes sense. I would even if I was feeling overwhelmed with warm fuzzies, I would pretty much hold off on that too, at least until the second date.
I've had partners before that told me they loved me before we even started dating, which
Whoa.
was which was okay because we've been friends for a long time. But
Okay.
it becomes the question of, do you love me, or do you love me as a friend, or what is exactly your meaning of love in this situation?
Exactly. I think that's the word is so loaded. It really, unless you know somebody, well, actually, even if you do know somebody very well, it can still be not entirely clear what exactly they mean by it. So it's good to have that discussion about what you mean by "I love you" uh, before you actually say it per se. Like I've done that before, where so I have a tendency to I do enjoy when I feel like I can say so safely with someone with whom I'm feeling a lot of really powerful warm fuzzies. I like to be able to say I love you without it meaning a whole bunch of commitment and other like attached associated ideas. So sometimes what I'll do when I feel the strong urge to speak that phrase for the first time to a person, I'll have a talk with them about the phrase in abstract third person terms, and that way they at least kind of know where I'm coming from, and then maybe even preface it with, so all of the disclaimers I mentioned before, I love you. And
How
that
very
you
meta of you.
clever.
Occasionally it happens. Okay, so another question has come up, and it's, what is it, or would it be like to live with your meta?
I think with enough space that would be fine. A single bedroom household with one bathroom might not be enough. I would say would not likely be enough space for that.
I don't.
Almost, maybe.
If I had like a 7-bedroom mansion on 40 acres of land, it would probably not be enough space for me to share space with my meta.
Huh.
But I'm kind of prickly that way. I guess it would depend on the meta. There, there's been one meta that I really liked, and we really got along, and we were really close friends. And I briefly considered what it would be like to live with her. But other than that, no, I'm not down.
Hmm.
Um, but like, I understand that this is a difficult question for you, but like, how would you share space? Like, would it need to be 2 bedrooms, or
I
separate houses, or
I mean, for me, I think if it was a particularly large one, I think it could still possibly work. We just need like a king size bed and all of us to not have a lot of stuff. And I think it could work. If we got along really super well and we'd already known each other for like a couple of years before we decided to do that, or maybe at least 1 year. And
yeah.
then, but yeah, if we can share space and each have a shelf in the refrigerator and all that good stuff.
I am also like a bad roommate just for my partner. Like, I leave messes and don't clean up like I should, and honestly would prefer to be naked 90% of the time, much like um, Ardia says. Um, it would be a bad scene if I had to share time and space and all that. Especially since I'm an introvert, like I need a certain amount of quiet time and alone to be okay.
That makes sense.
And I think you can never have too much communication with anything involving the poly lifestyle. And with me, moving in, just any. I'll just think of any random and say, how would we act? What would we do if this were to happen? You want do we trade off nights? Who's sleeping where? Do we do 3 nights in a row, 4 nights in a row? And I think discuss everything beforehand and discuss it again, and just over communicate with, because it's a big step.
Mm-hmm.
Living with somebody, you're already sharing, you're sharing your entire life, and that brings effect. Like, what if my Meta's sister wanted to come over and hang out with her for a while? Does she know about this? And it opens a whole can of worms. So I think everything should just be discussed.
That
It's
makes a lot
always
of sense.
the for me, it's always the how many nights in a row do I get? I'm one of those people that I was abused in a previous relationship, and it's honestly something I should get over, but I haven't yet. And so the idea of my partner spending the night most nights, or at least half the nights away from me, is a problem. Like, even on his date nights, I can't fall asleep until he gets home. So that whole I'm gonna spend 3 nights in the other bedroom or 4 nights in the other bedroom, I would very quickly lose my mind.
Would it work better if there was one bed?
I don't mind sharing a bed, but that comes with its own issues. I've had metas before accuse me of couples privilege for wanting to share a bed, or in one case, my partner would have sex with his other meta, or with my meta rather, and um, they would get done, and he'd roll over and he'd want to have sex with me, and this was a big problem for that meta. She felt it was gross, or that it was disrespectful, and it wasn't something that I was necessarily initiating. It was just happening, but she felt like because that partner turned around and immediately had sex with me, that it was couples privilege, and I was being hateful and marking my
Oh,
territory.
oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So it definitely sounds like that particular partner had some insecurities that were clearly causing some issues with that relationship, and I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Eh, it happens. You learn things as you
Hmm.
go along, and that particular meta had told me in the beginning that she wanted to have a relationship with both of us. So I honestly, without any sub sub subterfuge, uh,
Subterfuge?
yes, thank you for that word. Um,
Skullduggery, legerdemain.
yes, um, she felt that I was being underhanded and trying to take up more of our partner's time, whenever that really wasn't the case. I
Hmm.
um, felt like we all three were in a relationship together, and we should spend time together, all three together. And I realized that not all relationships move at the same pace, but it felt like my relationship with her was getting kind of put on the back burner and used as a manipulation tool.
Yeah, that's tough.
Okay, so let's see. So apparently the fridge is a big problem with roommates. I've had roommates most of my adult life. We never really had fridge problems. We had messes problems, but we never had fridge problems. But I guess I can see that where you're, planning a perfect dinner and you go in there and two of the ingredients for your next meal are missing. That would be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you'd have to kind of come to some sort of agreement on expectations. Like, I live with my partner, and or I guess I should say one of my partners, and and we sort of have an understanding that everything in the fridge in the kitchen belongs to us both equally, regardless of who put it there. And so, if I didn't say anything about it, and then I open up the pantry door or the refrigerator door and find out that thing I was hoping to get isn't there, I've got no one to blame but myself, because that's totally consistent with our very laissez-faire sort of agreement. If I wanted to keep something for a specific purpose, I'd have to make that special request. I'd have to be like, "Can you please reserve this for such and such?"
People who
I'm
steal
pretty.
other people's food out of fridge deserve a special circle of hell.
But
Uh,
I live with
Agreed.
Gluttony. The seventh circle, I think, is where gluttons. No, wait. Gluttons are in the fourth circle. Shoot, it's been too long since I've read Dante. Go ahead.
um I find this conversation amusing because I live with 3 teenagers, and so I never know what's going to be in the fridge whenever I open it because they're like the worst roommates ever. So,
And they don't pay rent.
and they don't pay rent. In fact, they take all of your money, especially around school time. So here's another thing to quote Apex. What have metas brought to your life?
I
To
just
my
laughed.
life.
That's all.
Let's see. They've brought satisfaction and joy to my partners, and for that I'm grateful.
Mine brings me chocolate.
Ooh, that's even
That
better.
is,
No,
that
I'm
is the best
joking.
meta ever. I have to say, whenever I am going to meet a potential meta, if I have time, a lot of times I will bring cookies because I think nothing makes for a better meta than being brought cookies.
I've had a lot of
Yay.
good meta relationships start with me bringing beer.
You're awesome. That word?
Yeah, no, there's no better way to get on my biz than to bring me something with sugar and chocolate
Mm. But I don't know how to exactly put it, but my meta and I are very similar as far as looks. So I have a sister because I'm not close with my siblings, so I have her to go to about everyday stuff, not just poly stuff. So it's like I gained a friend or sister. I
Nice.
don't mean to sound too sappy.
No, that's
No, that's
awesome.
great.
The meta that I was closest to, she doesn't really speak to my partner all that often anymore. Not because they had a terrible breakup, it's just because things happen. But we still talk on like a weekly basis. And so I feel like I gained a friend that I would have never had he not introduced us.
Yeah, I mean, I consider one of my metas be pretty much like this, and we even found a hobby to enjoy together when we're not with our partner.
That's cool. I like having things in common with my meta. Like I said, the meta I got along with, we shared recipes. She came over once a week for family dinner. Um, she watched my kids one time whenever I had an emergency, and that was amazing. It was great. Okay, so a question Aprax uh, asked is, do you ever go meta shopping with your partner?
I read that too quickly, and I thought it said, "Do you ever go shopping with your Meta?" And I was like, "Oh," but then I stopped.
So
I had
so I guess that means like you and your partner go shopping for a gift for your partner's partner?
no. It means, do you ever go shopping for a partner for your partner?
Can you wait? So so he
Do
was
you help
So,
your
asking.
partner find a Meta?
so a question.
Oh.
So what
Oh,
he's
okay.
so what he said as a follow up was he's come back from a party with partner, and then went over the thoughts of the people that we met.
Okay, I see what he's asking now. Well, I mean, the closest thing I can think of to that is there was one time where a partner of mine suggested that I should reach out to another particular person, to potentially, start a relationship, get to know them, whatever, like, kind of a matchmaker wingman kind of relationship sort of thing. Like, hey, so and so says that they'd be interested in da 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 da. You should message them, and so then that person. Okay, I need to start lettering people. So my partner's person A said, "Hey, you should message person B," and person B had partner C, and partner C was also kind of communicating with A to kind of help make this work, and C was chatting me up to person B, all to kind of try and help me and B get together. And B and I actually got along really well, although as time went on, A didn't much like that so much anymore, and but yeah, it's um but yeah, I wouldn't say we were shopping so much per se together, but more like my partner was keeping an eye out for, other people who she thought would fit well with me. I've never really actively done that for my partners though.
I've totally done this. I've gone to a party, seen somebody that he's been talking to a lot, maybe chat them up, or maybe just join their conversation for a minute or two just to get a feel of them, and then be, after the fact, to be like, oh, so you like so and so? Well, I think they're pretty cool. And, you know, um, it's not that I'm telling them you should totally date this person and it would make me happy, but it's more like I think this person's cool and wouldn't ruffle my feathers too much, and that would be awesome. Which
Hmm.
sounds really awful. That's maybe not what I meant,
That
but
doesn't sound awful to me.
It sounds better than what I was gonna say.
I realize that I am very hard to get along with, so I take that into account that I'm going to be prickly. So um, yeah, like he says, while it seems kind of like unicorn hunting territory, um, I don't necessarily view it that way because I'm not, like I said, I kind of have a rule of not dating my partner's partner. So whenever, we talk about these people, I don't think of them as potential partners for me. I think of them in the context of, would I hate their face after about 2 weeks?
Huh.
And so that's what I go off of.
Yeah, I mean, I judge based on like how I feel like they've interacted with me and, you know, that sort of thing. But frankly, yeah, my partner knows kind of to get, I won't say my approval, but my opinion on the situation. Because if I didn't feel like that person and I really like got along so well, then it's probably not headed for in a good direction, anyways.
I can see that. My partner and I, while I try to take the relationship anarchist tact and let them be what they're going to be, deep down, I'm still very hierarchical. So what I kind of look for is this person going to challenge my place? And if so, how are they going to do it? Is it going to be in a way that I can grow from and be okay with, or is it going to be in a confrontational kind of way?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I actually have had to put a stop to someone from talking to my partner because they didn't want me to know about them.
Uh,
That's
yeah,
ugly.
that can be a big, yeah.
Yeah, I said no. That's
Yeah, I'm pretty much not okay with that.
because we're open and honest and we communicate about everything, and no. And the way I look at it is, if she wanted to keep that a secret, what else does she want to keep a secret?
Exactly. I am not okay with secrets. You can pretty much tell me anything, and I'll react how I'm going to react. But how I react is not going to affect how my partner continues your relationship. But if you want to start off keeping secrets, I'm out. I can't even. I'm full of Becky right then. I can't even.
Oh, I
So
get it.
Yeah, my partner pretty much knew.
so
My partner pretty much knew that that was going to be a no-go.
yeah.
So he just kind of was laughing at it like, okay, I already cut it off with this person, but then this is why.
So what Aprax asked is, has someone had to squash a crush with somebody or something? Squash a crush with something like that person is everything you hate about your ex.
Hmm.
Luckily, no, because my partner figures it out pretty quickly on their own. Basically, like they're not. He doesn't act quickly on things, so he takes a lot of deliberation, and in doing so, kind of gets a lot of experience with someone before they like actually go on a date or start dating. So he has some time to like figure out that this person's not what they seemed, or maybe they're just not exactly the best person for me to date. And also they can tell kind of by my reactions, like yeah, let's try to find somebody a little bit different.
Hmm.
I know for a fact that I have put the kibosh on certain potential partners, and I said something like, really, you like that person. They seem kind of manic, or they have a lot of qualities that you say that you don't like. And while I appreciate they're fun and exciting right now, how do you feel like you're going? How do you think you're going to feel about them in 6 months or whatever? Because we all know that Innery is a very powerful drug,
Hmm.
and people don't always see that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the closest I've come to that, I think there have been times where, someone might be getting into a relationship and I may be detecting a pattern or just the beginnings of something that I might worry about. And so, I would just kind of be upfront and be like, so, you know, how do you feel about such and such? I would try to phrase it in the form of a question if I can, about like, this thing that you've dealt with before, and how do you feel like you would deal with that now? And uh, kind of just to get my, the person I'm talking to thinking about possible plans, trying to get them thinking a bit more, clearly. And I think it usually works to get them, their mind on that sort of track, because ultimately, it is their decision, and maybe they have a really good answer, and they just need me to ask in order to tell me.
And I've experienced that myself. My partner has noticed a number of habits that I tend to, or ruts that I tend to get into. And so he will be very upfront with me and ask me, is this the type of relationship that you want? Is, in the past, you said that you weren't really okay with, you know, very superficial kind of relationships. And so what you're getting into seems like a very superficial relationship. Are you sure that's what you want to do?
Yeah, I think that sounds, or well, actually, you tell me how you feel. How did you respond to that? Well,
Um, Considering I'm a mess generally anytime that I'm dating, I responded in the most messy way possible. Uh,
uh,
but no, the problem was I was already seeing that issue. Like I already saw that it was being more of a swinger type relationship, or just the only time we're going to get together is to have sex, um, as opposed to I'm going to have a deep, meaningful relationship with you. So I already saw those things coming, which was leading to the breakdowns and the problems that he was seeing. And so while it was hurtful in some ways, I could say, yeah, I am totally doing the thing that I always do, and I should stop that. But at the same time, it's like, you don't own me. I do what I want to do. And, you know,
so do you think your partner could have there would have been a better way to present it, something that may have been easier for you to handle, or that would have made it, that might have been more effective?
I'm pretty difficult. I, how do I say it? I'm very contrary. I will absolutely say that everything is fine until it is absolutely not fine.
Mm.
So, there's not really anything he could have said to make me realize what I was getting into until I was already there.
I
Um,
see.
but that's not on him. That's on me, and I
So
take full responsibility for that.
that's very mature of you to recognize that. I wonder. So then, would you say that it's kind of like in cases like that, the best thing a partner can do is just kind of observe and support as their partner goes through whatever pattern they're observing?
I I would say so. At least for me, and it's honestly how I will do it. And this also goes back to some abuse that I had in a previous relationship. The other, my ex husband, absolutely was not fine with anybody that I dated ever. And so anytime my partner says, hey, this might not be the most awesome thing for you to do, immediately what I hear is, I'm forbidding you from doing that. And that
Mm,
makes me want to do it even more because I'm being told not to. And so
yeah.
that's not really on my partner. That's on me. And I know that my partner is not that way. And that's not the relationship we have. So what I need to do is take those things more to heart and not think that he's denying me of something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very it's commendable that you have that much self-awareness, because I think a lot of people wouldn't, recognize that level of their own room for improvement on how they handle things. So I think that's critical for being able to make further improvements. And yeah, I like the idea of personally that's I kind of like the idea of letting my partner do their thing, and then just being very supportive and comforting to them when they need help. And I when I was growing up as a child, I had a sibling who was also a caregiver of mine, who was so fiercely independent that they would react with hostility if I attempted to help them with something. So I learned,
Yes.
I was trained from a very early age that you let someone make their mistakes and you wait for them to ask for help before you offer it. And I know some people prefer the other way. Some people are offended if someone doesn't volunteer assistance, or that doesn't, get in front of something for them and stand up for them. But it because of my childhood, that does not come naturally to me. What comes naturally to me is, I'll be there for you when you ask, and I trust your judgment and that kind of thing.
See, and I'm the older sibling, so that
Ah.
makes perfect sense to me. Because that was me. I don't want your opinion until I ask it. I want you to give me cuddles and love because I fucked up.
Yay! I'm 100% down with that. I like the way you.
Okay, so we're coming into the last few minutes. Um, so we can keep the discussion going in general, or in Greater Houston polyamory, or with friends. But the broadcast is coming to a close. Thank everyone. Thank you, everyone who joined in, either as a watcher or a participant. We're now open to new topics. Just hit up an admin. So let us know what you want to talk about for next week. And we are so thankful that y'all all joined in and let us know how you felt about Metamors. Uh, yeah, just hit us up and we will figure out next week's topic. Thank you all so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.